Hi guys, and welcome to part 8 of my Ring review series. Today I'm covering the American version of Ring 2. You'll find all my other Ring reviews in my Ring playlist, and there probably will be spoilers today, I imagine. So just to get you up to speed in terms of how I felt about the first Ring movie, just in case you didn't watch the review, I loved it. I gave it 5 out of 5. It's a true masterpiece for me. But I've never been very quick in terms of jumping onto the second film because I've never believed that there was any more story to tell. I did briefly put it on about 10 or 15 years ago, but I fell asleep halfway through and I never went back to it the following day. Now, looking back on that experience, I've always just presumed that I fell asleep because I was tired. But having now watched the film in full, I need to reevaluate what happened back then. I suspect I fell asleep because I was completely bored shitless. I even fell asleep on this watch through, if I'm perfectly honest. So I've now fallen asleep twice in both my viewings of Ring 2, which should tell me something. It should definitely tell you something. This is one of the biggest drop-offs in quality from a first film to a second film I have ever seen in my life. I mean, it's up there with Battle Royale 1 and 2. If you've ever seen The Coyote and the Roadrunner, you know when the coyote goes over the edge of the cliff and then starts tapping the air to see if there's any flaw, but there isn't. So it's like... That's what the Ring franchise does with the American version of Ring 2. It's a sharp, steep, vertical drop into the void, I suspect to never return. And the thing is, this movie had some things going for it at the outset. This is not a straight-to-video sequel with none of the original actors and half the budget. This film's got a decent budget as far as I can tell. It's got Naomi Watts coming back to play Rachel Keller. Why she came back for this, I have absolutely no idea. I mean, you look at her filmography, she doesn't usually do sequels. She usually just plays one character and moves on to something else. Back in the 90s, she did Children of the Corn 4, but I could imagine that she was sufficiently young at that time that she was just trying to put credits on her resume and anything would do. But if you go 10 years further on from that to when she was doing Ring 2, she didn't need to do this. I mean, you look at the film she was doing around about this time. She did a Richard Nixon film, 21 Grams, Ned Kelly, not films that I would watch necessarily, but reputable films that people have heard of, you know? And she also did Ring 2, and it's like, why would you do this? Did you not read the script? Was she locked into this film somehow? I just don't get it. The other actor who comes back for this is David Dorfman, who plays Aiden in the first movie. Wooden as a board in that first film, but you don't notice because the rest of the film is so good. But this time, because you're not having a good time, you'll notice more just how bad this child actor is. And he would eventually leave the industry. I think he's a lawyer now or something. He's only in his 30s, but he's woefully bad in both of these two films, to be honest. So there's a thing in this where Samara possesses Aiden for a good chunk of the runtime, and they knew that this kid would struggle to play split personalities. He struggles with one personality. So what they've told him, basically, is when he's playing Samara in a scene and not himself, he needs to just smile, do a big kind of Joker smile. And that way we'll know that the evil persona has taken him over, you know. But this falls flat because Samara's not a smiley villain. In fact, she's probably one of the most miserable killers in cinema history. She's totally emo and humourless. She's got hair in front of her face. She's not a smiley killer. So why would you use a smile to show us that someone's been taken over by Samara? It's not like she comes out of the well and goes, why so serious? She doesn't do anything like that. So it's just a silly thing to do. I get that they were struggling with this actor, but... the only thing I can think of is to just have him have curtains with his hair and move his hair a little bit over his eyes, maybe. But other than that, but yeah, he's bad. We've got a director here who was the guy who did the first Ring film from '98, and he also did Ring 2. So this is a guy who knew how to do a Ring film, and he also knew how to do a good Ring sequel as well. So why he's botched this up so badly, I don't know. If you want to know the plot in slightly more detail for this, there's not much more to tell than what I've already given you. So after the first film, the videotape virus, if you want to call it that, it's still spreading. It's heading south now because it started off in Seattle. But Samara takes a little break from doing that in order to try and possess Aiden because he's the only child who's watched the tape by this point, I guess. She's identified him as somebody she would like to possess in order to be reborn. So she spends most of this film trying to take him over, and Rachel's trying to stop this happening, and this is their excuse basically for making this another Rachel and Aidan centric movie. There are some positives here, bizarrely. So firstly, the film is shot and set in Astoria for the most part, which is brilliant for me because I love the Goonies. So the chance for me to see another film set in Astoria, excellent. Like, I would rather live in Astoria than somewhere like Miami or LA, but that's probably just me. But my cousin actually went to visit Astoria with his family a few years ago. He's not even into movies, but despite that, he still took great pleasure in showing me pictures of the beach where the car chase from the Goonies took place and so on. At the time, I was like... But the setting for this film is a positive. We also get a good prologue. So just like the first film, we get an early kill that takes place in somebody's house. But less noteworthy than the actual kill here are the names who are appearing in this scene, because we get a couple of recognisable actors, the first of which is Ryan Merriman, who I guess at this point in time was trying to rebuild his career after Halloween Resurrection. And we also get Emily Van Camp playing the girlfriend. Now, she would go on to have an amazing career in film and TV, but she looks very, very young here. And I would also suggest somewhat uncomfortable being in front of a camera, but she would go on to be brilliant further down the line. But once we get past the prologue, I'm afraid the rest of the film is mostly a dead loss. I'd say the biggest problem with it, and this covers most of the movie really, is that things are constantly being rewritten that we thought we knew, and the film is often making things up as it's going along, changing what Samara can do and what she can't do. Rachel somehow knows things that she shouldn't really know. She presumes that she can do supernatural things that I just don't get why she would presume that, and so on. There's just so many crazy things in the script. One example of where they've overwritten something that was established in the first movie comes with the treatment of Samara's birth mother. So this is a character who wasn't in the first movie, but it was set up that the Morgans got this child from overseas somewhere. They went on holiday and came back with Samara, but we never actually found out where. So it was like this cool, creepy little mystery. But they've changed that for this second film. So now it transpires the Morgans actually got Samara through a perfectly normal adoption procedure in the US. And we actually see the birth mother. She's been locked up in an asylum because she's a little bit crazy, and probably that's where Samara gets a bit of her craziness from, who knows. But this whole thing about having random characters in asylums with padded cells, it's a little bit of a movie trope. It happens a little bit too often in movies for me. And in this film, it just seems like a convenient excuse for Rachel to go and visit a different location for 5 minutes so she can find out not a lot, in all honesty. There's a scene with a reindeer in this film, and it's actually the only scene I could remember from when I watched half the movie all those years ago. But even though they've spent quite a bit of money on the effects and stuff with the reindeer, it just doesn't do an awful lot for me. It's a little bit reminiscent, this scene, of the horses on the boat scene from the first film, but the difference is that the horses on the boat stuff was really good. It was very creepy, very well filmed. But the reindeer scene here, it's not that it's badly filmed, but it just doesn't really give you any kind of decent scare. All it does is serve to remind us just how much money they had to play with this film, only to basically piss it down the drain. I wrote some questions down about the plot on a piece of paper because I'm stupid, you see. I can't figure out things by myself when it comes to a film like this. I've got to get other people to do it for me. Now, I'm sure that this film is perfectly logical and covers all of its narrative bases. It just so happens that I'm not very good at figuring things out for myself. So I'm going to ask you these questions and maybe you can fill in the blanks for me. So, question 1. How is it that Samara is suddenly able to make people commit suicide in this film? Because this wasn't established in the first movie. It just seems to be something that she can now do. Did I miss something at some point during this film? You let me know. Second question. How did Max's body get from the house to the car in this film? So this character, played by Simon Baker, killed in a house, but then later on in the film his body is discovered in a car. So is Samara now lifting bodies up and carrying them to different spots to dump them, a bit like Michael Myers in Halloween? Is this something she's now doing? Again, is this something that I missed in terms of her change of character? Why does Rachel think that drowning Aidan will get Samara's spirit out of him, but somehow keep Aidan alive. Now, I know Aidan goes to Rachel in a dream and sort of hints that she might have to do this, but why on earth would you trust that dream? I've got kids, and let me tell you, if I realised that one of my kids was possessed by Samara, yes, I'd be really worried about that, but I ain't going to drown them in the hope that it will kill Samara but keep my kid alive. That's just not happening. It's just utterly bizarre that Rachel would take this course of action in this film. I mean, imagine if it goes wrong. Prison for life, kid's still dead. What else have we got? Okay, so how does Rachel know? Notice how a lot of these questions start with how does Rachel know? How does Rachel know that deliberately grabbing Samara's hands will teleport her to the well? How does she know that? Because it seems like a really deliberate thing that she's trying here, grabbing the hands. But how does she know it will teleport her a certain place and for it to be the well specifically? Why is it when Rachel's in the well is the lid slightly ajar for her to escape? Like I'm sure at the end of the first movie, the police would have come in, investigated the well, it would have been knocked down, or the lid would have at least been closed and it would have been concreted off or something like that. But when Rachel's teleported there, the lid is just slightly open for some reason. I think it's sort of hinted in the film that this is because Samara can therefore escape to go and kill people whenever she needs to or something. I'm sure I caught a line of dialogue to that effect, but it just seems to me like an excuse so that Rachel can climb out of the well, but whatever. Next question. Why is it that Rachel is able to climb up the well anyway? Like, the whole point of this series is that somebody fell into this well and couldn't climb out because you can't climb out of this thing. But Rachel can apparently climb out of it, no problem at all. Next question. Why is it that when Rachel is climbing out of the well, Samara takes about half an hour to start climbing after her? She just gives her this massive head start for no reason. Why? It's not Smokey and the Bandit. Just get after her. Utterly crazy. I've got one last question. How does Rachel know that jumping off the cliff will teleport her back to the normal world instead of just kill her or drop her into some other part of purgatory? Like, how does she know anything in this movie? It's just stupid. Like, every 5 minutes there's something that's got me writing a question down on some paper, and I don't know what's going on. It's like the logic and what people know, what they don't know, what they can do, what they can't do. It's utterly bonkers in this film. I just cannot be doing with it. Normally at this point I would show you the copy of the film that I own for this, but I don't own Ring 2. I almost did. So the only Ring film that I've got on the American side of this franchise is the first one on DVD. But I've been aware for some time that there is a trilogy box set you can buy for the American ones. You get Ring 1, Ring 2 and Rings. It's about £17, pretty good price for a trilogy box set on Blu-ray. But I simply forgot to buy it. So when it came to the night that I'd put aside for watching Ring 2, it suddenly occurred to me that I'd actually forgotten to buy this thing. So I thought, oh God, well, I don't want to leave it to a future date, so I'm just going to rent the movie. So I went on Prime, rented the movie for £5, which is a bloody ridiculous ridiculous price for a film like this. But the upshot is that I don't own Ring 2 at the end of all this, which I guess is something to be grateful for. I can't comment on the film Rings, which is the third one. We'll come to that in the future though, won't we? Right, for now, let's get to the bag of terror and find out how I'm going to score this. So we've got 1.5 bloody axes out of 5. That's a massive come down from the 5 out of 5 that the first film got, and I'm only giving it 1.5 basically because of Astoria and Emily Van Camp. That's it. Right. Until next time, cheerio, bye-bye.